the Guardian of Evermore. Seraphina Vale was no ordinary being. She was the Guardian of Evermore, an ancient forest that pulsed with life and secrets. Evermore was no mere woodland. It held a portal to other realms, its energies a delicate balance between worlds. For centuries, Seraphina had tended to the forest, her connection to nature granting her the power to manipulate its flora and fauna. She was its heart and it was hers. Yet, she was a solitary figure, bound to her sacred duty. Until one day he arrived. The intruder stumbled into the forest with a limp and a desperate look in his eyes. Seraphina observed him from the shadows, her body melded into the bark of a great oak. He was not like the others who came before him, hunters, scavengers, and mercenaries searching for the portal. This man was different. His movements spoke of weariness, not malice. When he collapsed near the crystal-clear stream that wound through Evermore, Seraphina emerged, her long silver hair catching the dappled sunlight. Her emerald-green eyes studied him as vines crept forward, wrapping gently around his wrists and ankles to ensure he posed no threat. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice like the rustle of leaves. His eyes opened, revealing the deep blue of a stormy sky. "I'm Kale," he rasped. I didn't mean to intrude." Seraphina hesitated. Most who came to Evermore were liars, driven by greed or ambition. Yet something in Kale's gaze was disarming, an honesty she had rarely encountered. She loosened the vines and offered him water from her cupped hands. "You're wounded," she said, noting the blood seeping through his torn tunic. Kale nodded, grimacing. "Bandits. They took everything. I had nowhere else to go." Seraphina nodded, her hand brushing against a nearby tree. A blossom unfurled, its petals glowing faintly. She crushed it in her palm, creating a salve that she applied to his wound. As she worked, Kale watched her with fascination. "Who are you?" he asked, wincing as the salve stung. "I am the guardian of this forest," she replied. "It is my duty to protect it, and the portal it shelters." Kale's brows furrowed. "Portal? To other worlds," Seraphina explained. "It is a gateway to realms beyond imagination. But it is dangerous. Many seek it, and none can be allowed to abuse its power." Kale nodded, his expression somber. "I don't envy your burden." As days turned into weeks, Kale's strength returned, and so did his charm. He stayed in Evermore, helping Seraphina tend to the forest. He learned to listen to the whispers of the trees, to respect the delicate balance of life within the woods. Seraphina found herself drawn to him in a way she never thought possible. His laughter broke through the stillness of her days, and his stories painted pictures of a world beyond the forest that she had never known. In turn, Kale found himself captivated by Seraphina. Her ethereal beauty was matched only by her fierce devotion to Evermore. She taught him to trust the forest, to let its energy flow through him. For the first time in years, Kale felt truly alive. One moonlit night, as fireflies danced around them, Kale took Seraphina's hand. "Have you ever thought of leaving this place?" he asked. She looked away, the light in her eyes dimming. "I cannot. The portal must be protected." "But what about you? What do you want?" Seraphina hesitated. For centuries, her desires had been irrelevant, her existence defined by duty. Yet, as she looked into Kale's eyes, she felt a longing she had never allowed herself to acknowledge. "I want," she paused, her voice trembling. "I want to know what it is to live, not just to guard." Kale cupped her face in his hands, his touch warm against her cool skin. "Then let me show you," he whispered. Their love blossomed like the wildflowers of Evermore. Kale coaxed Seraphina out of her guarded shell, showing her the simple joys of life, dancing barefoot in the rain, watching the sunrise from a hilltop, laughing until their sides ached. For the first time, Seraphina felt truly free. But happiness in Evermore was fleeting. One fateful day, as Seraphina and Kale wandered near the portal's shimmering veil, the forest grew restless. The trees whispered warnings, their leaves rustling with unease. Seraphina froze, her connection to Evermore revealing the source of the disturbance. "They're here," she murmured, her voice tinged with dread. "Who?" Kale asked. "Invaders. They seek the portal." A group of mercenaries burst into the clearing, their weapons gleaming. Seraphina's heart raced as she stepped in front of Kale, her hands outstretched. Vines shot from the ground, wrapping around the intruders, but they were prepared. One raised a torch, setting the vines ablaze. "Stay behind me," Seraphina commanded. Kale refused. He grabbed a fallen branch, using it to fend off one of the attackers. The fight was chaotic, the air thick with smoke and the cries of the wounded. Seraphina unleashed her power, summoning roots to entangle their foes, but the invaders were relentless. As one lunged at Seraphina, Kale threw himself between them. The blade meant for her found his side instead. Time seemed to slow as Kale collapsed, blood staining the ground. "No!" Seraphina screamed, cradling him in her arms. With a surge of fury, she summoned the full force of Evermore. The forest came alive, branches and roots tearing through the mercenaries. The portal's light flared, and the remaining invaders fled, their cries swallowed by the woods. Kale's breaths were shallow as Seraphina pressed her hands against his wound, her tears falling like rain. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Kale managed a weak smile. "I couldn't let anything happen to you. Don't leave me," she pleaded, her powers faltering as despair consumed her. "I can heal you." Kale shook his head. "It's too late." "No, you can't." "Seraphina," he interrupted, his voice soft. "You've shown me what it means to truly live, and I hope I've done the same for you." "You have," she choked out, her tears glistening like dew. Kale's hand brushed her cheek one last time before it fell limp. Seraphina's anguished cry echoed through the forest, the trees bowing as if mourning with her. For days, Seraphina remained by Kale's side, her grief a palpable force. The forest tried to console her, its energy wrapping around her like a cocoon, but nothing could mend her shattered heart. In the end, Seraphina made her choice. She planted a seed from Evermore's heart beside Kale's grave, infusing it with her power. A magnificent tree grew, its branches reaching toward the heavens, its roots entwined with the portal. Seraphina poured her essence into the tree, becoming one with it. Evermore thrived, its guardian now an eternal part of its being. The portal remained protected, its light a tribute to the love and sacrifice of Seraphina Vale and Kale, the man who had taught her the true meaning of life.